So, it's so funny because I think for a long time, I was one of the people who thought self-care was like, go and get your hair done, your nails, take a bubble bath, meditating. Not that meditating isn't self-care or any of those other things. But then I realized recently, especially, I think I told you I did Dare to Lead, which is Brene Brown kind of facilitator training. And I realize it's boundaries. It's understanding what you need and being able to express what you need, whether it's professionally or personally. Like being able to get what you need in life is part of that self-care. And so if, for whatever it is, it's like I need to go and, see my son play basketball. His freshman year, I made sure I made all his home games if I was in town. That to me was self-care because I am spending that quality time with my son and showing him that I'm rooting for him, that I'm caring for him, but I'm also putting around boundaries of like, there's a lot that I sacrifice and we're traveling for work or, leaving the house. How can I actually contribute to supporting my child in different ways? And to me, that was part of the self-care, but it's the boundaries as well. Like, what do I need to do? I walk every day, regardless of what's going on in my schedule, which may mean I have to get up at 4 a.m. But that is like the self-care of like making sure that I have some movement in my life because it's therapeutic. It helps me clear my mind. It helps me process information, all the things.
Rate yourself on the self-care scale. There's 1. If you say, I don't have time for self-care, that's a 1. 2 is self-care is important and I know I need to do it to perform well in my job. So that would be a 2. 3 is self-care is essential. It's all about juicing your joy, doing what you want, filling your tank. It's something essential that I would never miss any single day. I do it all the time. And it is a not miss opportunity. That would be a 3. So if you're not a 3, then this episode is for you. Today, we're talking with Andrea Foggy-Paxton. She's an entrepreneur in residence at Education Leaders of Color. She went to Berkeley for undergrad and then Baruch for her Master of Public Administration. After that, she was executive director of Tavis Smiley Foundation. That's when she got named to 30 Under 30 for Ebony Magazine with Sean Combs. She went on to be a program officer for the Gates Foundation and then managing director of partner strategy at the Broad Center. And now she's at the Education of Color as the entrepreneur in residence. In Boss Mamas, we talk about juicing your joy, that to be the best mom and best leader, it's all about self-care. And Andrea is a really good example of this. She shares how she learned a lot of self-care practices from her mom. She also learned entrepreneurship from her mom. And whenever she's had to make decisions and pivot, she's always made it based on what brings her joy, what she wants. She shares specific strategies about these quarterly step backs, the questions she asks, how she makes sure that she's calibrated on the full wheel of life. I'm super excited for you to get to know her. All right, Andrea, I have to start our conversation with this magazine behind you. So I know that some of us don't have the screens up, but can you bring it up? If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. Describe it to us. And
yeah, so I pulled this out the garage recently. It's Ebony Magazine cover from January 2001. They used to do, I think they may still do it. I don't know, but 30 leaders under 30. And as you see, I was one of the 30 leaders under 30. And
who's on the cover? You can't, because it's important that people see who else is on the 30 under 30.
On the cover is Master P, Russell Simmons, and Sean Puffy-Combs. And so it was the annual swimsuit issue too. So it probably was a really popular issue. But at the time I was executive director at the Tavis Smiley Foundation. I was, fairly young, under 30. And it was a nice acknowledgement of the work that I had done up until that day, but it was also a challenge for me to think about how am I going to continue to lead? How am I going to continue to have impact and contribute to making our communities a better place? Because now I've been called out, right? Like to have your face attached to like leadership, like you're like nationally known. it kind of like made me think like I have to be accountable to myself and to all these people who now have seen me as a leader potentially. So it makes me just keep like that bar high of like, how am I having impact?
I'm stunned by you being in that Ebony magazine and with these like very celebrities, because you at below 30 were already a celebrity. So congrats on that. And I actually want to trace it back, Andrea, because often it starts with our roots. So can you talk about your roots and what got this journey going?
Yeah, well, my mother was a significant influence in my life. I grew up in San Francisco. She raised me. She worked hard. She always had at least two jobs, and at one point had her own business, a sign making business. She got that work ethic really, I think, from her parents, but especially from her father, who was a longshoreman, but also, worked on the side, helping people remodel their homes, or, handyman work and all the things. He was born in 1900, so he knew how to fix all the things. He knew how to recycle all the things. And I feel like she really adopted that kind of mindset. Like, even to this day, she's like, "Are you sure you need to throw that out? You sure you can't fix that?" And so I really feel like my upbringing in, that type of environment, where my grandfather was still alive until I was 10, and worked pretty much until he passed away at 80. To see that, and then see my mother, that definitely influenced me.
It's clear how much of an entrepreneurial spirit you've had. And even, was your dad in the picture? What did that look like?
Yeah, so my parents divorced when I was fairly young. So my father wasn't around growing up. We do have a relationship now. But, growing up, it was just me and my mom, and I don't have any siblings. And so I spent a lot of time, learning, reading. My mom didn't really allow me to do a whole lot of kind of like just outside activity from school. So I was at the library, I read, I went to church, I volunteered. But outside of that, that was pretty much my life. And I don't think I realized till later, growing up in San Francisco, that I lived in a predominantly Black community. I don't know if it ever registered to me, because most of my schools were very diverse. I went to public schools in San Francisco. So it never registered to me until later, when someone said, "Oh, you grew up in San Francisco, you didn't grow up in Oakland or Richmond. What part of San Francisco did you grow up?" And people who aren't Black aren't as familiar with this particular area. And then I noticed a lot of the Black folks who lived in my neighborhood had migrated from the South, including my grandparents. And so we grew up with chickens, we had a pygmy goat. And so people are like, "You grew up in San Francisco and had chickens and a pygmy goat?" But yes, it's just part of the culture there.
Chickens and a pygmy goat in San Francisco. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that. So this idea of earning money, you started working early, and can you talk more about that and how you chose the different jobs you took?
Yeah. So I remember my first job actually babysitting some neighbors' children, and that was a paid for piano lessons. I really wanted to take piano, and my mom couldn't afford the lessons at the time. And so that was my first real job. But then, I worked fast food, and I volunteered at the same time at the mayor's office. It was a project driving an influence, and it was fun because it allowed me to practice my public speaking skills. I was actually selected to do a public service announcement about drinking and driving as a teenager. And then my senior year, because I had been volunteering for probably a good year or so, they offered me an internship. And I went from making, like, I know this is really aging me, $4.25 to $8. And I was able to quit my McDonald's job, which was terrible, and really get to see what it's like to work in a government, entity, or in City Hall, I should say. And that really changed my trajectory. That, and then taking a pre-engineering course in college. College pre-engineering course my junior summer in high school. I was like, no more engineering for me. I think I'm a major in political science, because I enjoyed working at City Hall so much.
I love that. And so I love that it also leads you to becoming this ED, which gets you into this Ebony Magazine. And you end up pivoting, though, from that work into education. So what was that moment? How did you end up changing?
Well, the signs had been there. I'd run a youth employment program straight out of college. I'd worked with LAUSD high schools. I was running this youth leadership program nationally in 10 cities. And I was always wondering, like, why is education not giving students what they need? Why aren't they prepared for college and career? And then I reflected on my own opportunity. I was in gifted and talented, and while I was in diverse classes or diverse schools, my classes weren't diverse. Oftentimes I was the only Black student in these gifted and talent honor courses, or a few of us. And I knew there was some inequity around that. And so I remember standing at the fax machine, again, another like dating moment of being pregnant with my first son and thinking like, my child is going to have everything that they could possibly need to be successful in life. They have two parents who have degrees. Well, at that time we only had bachelors, but we had, 3 degrees between the two of us. And we have resources and networks. I'm like, how am I going to really contribute to making sure education is accessible and giving students what they need, not just accessible, but giving students what they need to be prepared for life. And I remember having that conversation with myself at the fax machine, like, yep, I'm not coming back to this job. I'm going to go work on systems reform, and then reaching out to friends to be like, help, I need a pivot right now.
I love that pivot because you end up meeting someone who's quite renowned in our world of talk about that.
Two things came together. I applied to grad school. I did National Urban Fellows, which allowed me to work at Andrea Foundation with a school board member from Baltimore City Public Schools, Diane Bell McCoy, who became a mentor and a longtime friend. And at the same time, a good friend, former boss, when I was a Freedom School site coordinator, introduced me to Howard Fuller and Deb McGriff. And at the time, I was still at the Tavis Smiley Foundation. I was heading to the Essence Festival. It's like one of my last hurrahs there. And my friend said, you should have dinner with Deb and Howard. And I was like, okay, for sure. Like, let's make that happen. I remember meeting them at a Emerald's restaurant, the famous chef, and being super excited to talk to them about what I wanted to see for education, what I had experienced in my work. And them saying, you would be great, the two of you, because my husband at the time was a technology coordinator for LAUSD Middle School. She was like, you guys should start a school. And I was like, start a school? How exciting. And then my body was like, Andrea, you're about to start a family. Like, that is crazy talk, because you will throw your whole self into it. You will not sleep. You will be working all the weekends, because I was already working all the weekends and working, 12-hour days and things like that. And so I didn't do that, but I did join at that time the board of the Black Alliance for Educational Options, which really helped me understand early on the kind of different strategies that were out there around giving young people access to other options beyond their school that was failing them, their neighborhood school that wasn't going to prepare them for college or high school. So that was my kind of entry point that then led to me, going to the Gates Foundation, working for Jim Shelton, like all these things that just kind of collided, where I found myself in ed reform in a way that I never thought I knew I wanted to do, but I never envisioned that I would be doing the things that I did.
It's so interesting how those moments at the fax machine or those pivots help us realize it's time. And yet, when given the opportunity, even so exciting as to start a school, I also find it interesting that you trusted your body. Your body was screaming, oh, hell no, this is not good. You're pregnant, not good for being a mom. And you listened, which is testament to you.
Yeah, I think it's something really important. And it's something I'm actually trying to teach my boys of, like, you have to listen to your body, right? Because your body usually tells you probably first, before even your mind tells you of what the answer is, if you really pay attention how you're responding to different situations. And I definitely remember thinking, like, the excitement of thinking about starting a new school, and then the immediate like red alert, like, that is not what you should be doing at this moment and point in your life. And feeling that struggle and that tension of, like, that is something that if I wasn't having a child, that I probably would have done. Mm-hmm. But because I had a commitment to a family and having, time with my family, my body was like, no. And so I think it's really important to be in tune with the physiological response that your body has in all kind of situations, but definitely in professional situations.
It's also interesting, Andrea, how you mentioned being pregnant, helping your body to tell you that that was not a good idea to start the school. And also your child and his diagnosis helped also shape your view of education. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, I was a program officer at the Gates Foundation, commuting from Baltimore to DC, and doing all the things that moms do: read, take your kids out to the zoo. And I'm like talking to my husband. I'm like, you know, you think something's going on because he's not pointing, he's not, starting to babble, all these things. And so fast forward, we talked to our pediatrician, some speech was provided, and the speech therapist called me one day, like, I don't want to freak you out, but I think you should rule out that your son is on the spectrum. And so we went ahead and got the screening, and of course, it came back and said he's on the spectrum. And at that time, you don't know what that means. You're like, what? Huh? What is my life? And then I feel like that was like the first panic of like, what am I going to have to do for my child? And I know I can do it, but this is overwhelming. And really kind of diving in and learning and understanding what autism is and how you manage that, and how young people can still navigate life regardless of the diagnosis. It also made me realize professionally that my child, like professionally, personally, my child's gonna be okay. But professionally, I was like, I really have to focus on how to make our educational system equitable, given like there are lots of kids who don't get the diagnosis or they get it too late. He happened to be like barely 3 years old. And so his early intervention really helped prepare him for, entering kindergarten. And so I just think about all the children who don't have, that, support, that kind of structure to help them be ready for when they first enter school. And if he hadn't had that, how far behind he would have been.
So glad that that was figured out so early to allow him to thrive now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about this, because sometimes, it's tough to get this news, and it's also tough to get breakdowns. And so share with us a recent breakdown that has helped you be a mom, boss mama, leader.
Yeah, well, the pandemic was definitely that. It's the convergence of, being in a job that you love working with the people, and knowing that it's coming to an end. So that was before the pandemic. So, I was at the Broad Center, which is how we know each other, and it's moved to the School of Management at Yale. So I was already processing and dealing with that when the pandemic happened. And I had already come to like some realization, like, this is a good thing. Like, the institution is going to live on in its next iteration. I'm going to be free to do this next thing. Like, this is pushing me to really get clear about my career and like what I want to have impact. But the whole being at home and sitting, and like, I had a first grader that had to keep online who was like, I have to go to the bathroom, hide underneath the table, doesn't want to be on Zoom. I was just like, this is crazy town, and I'm about to have a breakdown because no one prepared me for any of this. Working from home with kids, learning and teaching and trying to prepare them. So that was a breaking moment where I was like, I have to take care of myself. Like everyone else, I'm going to take care of them too. But the number one person is myself, because if I'm not like physically and mentally healthy, then I can't be the best mom, the best wife, the best friend, the best, manager, all the things. And so that was definitely a breaking moment and a turning point, most recently, of like, I have to take care of myself.
I have to push here because that's a pretty revolutionary idea for moms, especially, that it's essential to take care of you, and that feeding you allows you to feed your children. So talk to us about that, because did that come about, that belief, because of your mom? Like, how did you develop a strong conviction that you have to take care of yourself? It's a must.
So, it's interesting because I think it was looking at other people not taking care of themselves and seeing what was happening, right? And I was like, I don't want that to happen to me. My mother has always been a caretaker. She's always cared for other people. I don't know if she would say she takes care of herself in the same way that she's taking care of others. And so that I was like, I wanted to take care of people, but I want to take care of myself. And I feel like it's against the norm to care for yourself first. Like you are saying, like you're asking this question. To me, it was more about how do I be a happy mom, a happy person, and not have all this angst? When you start yelling at your kids because you're tired or you're stressed out, you're like, wait a minute, why is that happening? Oh, because I didn't get enough sleep. I didn't get the physical activity to help me detox some of this, stress that I'm feeling, all the things. And then you realize that's not who I want to be. So it was more of seeing examples of people not really taking care of themselves, the health implications for that, the impact on relationships, and really being like, I want to live my life a little bit different than that. I want to be whole, and I want to be in a place where I can give all, but not give all in sacrifice of myself, if you know what I mean.
No, I do. I think it's beautiful. And I completely agree that self-care is not selfish. In fact, if you really do want to take care of others, it has to start with taking care of yourself. Fueling your tank, because the journey is long and hard. And if there's nothing in the tank, I don't expect we would go very far. And if we did, it's not surprising that we would be fuming, right? And treating people not as kindly as they deserve. So I love it so much. And would want to also acknowledge that there are some haters for this idea, and there's judgment. So could you talk about that? And please talk about it. And how do you say it out loud? What do you say to these people who give you the side eye?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, I try to do once a year a girls trip. And I remember going to Thailand about 3 years ago for 10 days. That's the longest I've been away from my family. And I definitely had some questions of like, you're not gonna take your family, you're going, like just all the things of judging a mom for taking time away for herself. And I think that it's important to be confident that you need that time away and that it is time that is both valuable for you and your family. Because the kids, I've talked to my kid, and, we've talked about this. It's like, I'm preparing you for life. At some point, we all have expiration dates. I'm not going to be around forever. And so you have to be aware and comfortable with me not being around all the time and me being gone for 10 days. You figure out a lot of different things. All the things that I was doing for you, I'm not doing them for you. So you'll have to figure those things out on your own. And I come back a much happier person. It's so funny because Louis, my husband, is always like, I love when she goes away because one, she comes back happy, but two, then I get to do what I want to do, right? I get that time to watch the movies, eat the food, like the stuff I don't want to eat, all the things, right? And so it's nice that everyone gets a break because I'm the intense one. I'm the one who's like, you got this to do this. So the kids get a break for 10 days too, right? And so I feel like it's important for you to acknowledge and understand that some people may not get it and feel like it's the right thing to do and it's selfish, but at the same time, it's the right thing to do for you and that you have to do it. I try to talk to moms about not only taking time for themselves, but time with their mate, with their partner, whoever, because that time too is like once the children go away to college or off onto their own, then do you know this person that you've been living with for how many ever years? You have to continue to invest in those relationships. You have to continue to invest in yourself and your growth. And sometimes that means taking a break and getting away and spending time with girlfriends.
Beautiful. Tell me also, do you let your husband also do his own boy trips, or what does that look like for him?
Yeah. It's funny you ask. So he hasn't taken any, I think it's a part because they haven't figured out where they want to go or, like, first of all, women, we like, okay, where are we going? Let's do it. It's booked, organized, itinerary. So he's done some things. He'll always tease that I never let him go anywhere without surprising him because he did a business trip once and I did surprise him. Like I showed up and he was like, what are you doing here? I'm like, surprise. But that was at one time. And he doesn't travel that much. But all that to say is like, yeah, absolutely. If he wants to go on a 10-day trip, he knows I'm a little fragile. So I'll probably call my mom or his mom, be like, hey, somebody's coming to help me out, right? Because there's too many things to do. Like he's used to me being away because I've always traveled for work, but I'm not used to him being away. So it's actually a flipped kind kind of reverse thing of like, he's like, I can't be gone too long because she might have the kids sitting outside.
I love that. I'm laughing because also we have that in common, you and I. I also believe that it's important to take care of ourselves. I just did a trip to Vegas with some girls, and before that, my husband and I took a trip ourselves for the weekend to go rock climbing. So I'm happier, we're happier. I know who my partner is again. And the kids are happy. They're fine. They don't need us here all the time, and they need to grow up. So I love it so much. I want you to talk more, Andrea, now drilling on self-care for you. What does that look like during the pandemic? What did you realize that would heal yourself?
So, it's so funny because I think for a long time, I was one of the people who thought self-care was like, going to get your hair done, your nails, take a bubble bath, meditating. Not that meditating isn't self-care or any of those other things. But then I realized recently, especially, I think I told you I did Dare to Lead, which is Brene Brown kind of facilitator training. And I realized it's boundaries. It's understanding what you need and being able to express what you need, whether it's professionally or personally. Like being able to get what you need in life is part of that self-care. And so if, for whatever it is, it's like, I need to go and, see my son play basketball. His freshman year, I made sure I made all his home games if I was in town. That to me was self-care because I am spending that quality time with my son and showing him that I'm rooting for him, that I'm caring for him, but I'm also putting around boundaries of like, there's a lot that I sacrifice when we're traveling for work or, leaving the house. How can I actually contribute to supporting my child in different ways? And to me, that was part of the self-care. But, it's the boundaries as well. Like, what do I need to do? I walk every day, regardless of what's going on in my schedule, which may mean I have to get up at 4 a.m. But that is like the self-care of like making sure that I have some movement in my life because it's therapeutic. It helps me clear my mind. It helps me process information, all the things.
That's awesome because I love how you mentioned self-care comes with boundaries and it's also clarity on what you want. And that it's not just, okay, I like to move my body and take walks, but in the sphere of with your son, how do I want to spend time with him? I want to see his basketball games. Does that mean that I necessarily have to be, reading to him? I know he's older, but it's interesting how you get to choose the thing that allows you to both spend time and do it in a way that fills you too.
Yeah. I think I have always been in the pursuit of happiness. And I feel like there's a lot that we control around happiness. You can't be happy all the time, but for the most part, like 80 to 90% of the time, you can be happy. Stuff happens, things happen in life where you get sad, and that's just reality. But I'm like always questioning, like, if I'm not happy, what is it that I'm doing? Not what other people, because your happiness is not dependent on other people, right? It's about you. And I think oftentimes in life, people think their happiness is going to come from a relationship, a friendship, having children, all these things. But at the end of the day, it comes from within. So if you're not doing the things to make yourself happy, you're never going to be happy. And I have felt that kind of drive, like that, as part of my North Star of like, I have to be happy with my work that I do, with my relationships, with all the things I do, or it's not right. And so I'm always examining myself of what do I have control over that's preventing that happiness.
Talk to us about that strategy because I'm all about methodology or process.
Yeah.
What does it look like? How often do you do it? Is it a notebook? Like what does it look like?
It's definitely reflecting. It's definitely journaling and examining. It's definitely having conversations and processing with other people. I think that's super important. People you trust, people you have deep relationships with, of like, what is it about this job that I don't like? What is it about this relationship that I don't like? What is it about whatever it is? There's something that is not, going the way that you want, this project, what have you. And then, you start to unpack it and then you're like, this is really about me. There's something that I can do in this. I can communicate that I want this. I can ask for this. Now, someone may come back and say, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, you also have another path. I always tell people, like, you have choices. And, as a parent, I believe in choices. You give kids choices. You don't let kids opt out. And I feel like that is kind of my motto of like, I can't opt out of like taking control of my life, of doing the things that are going to be satisfying for me. So, is it a weekly thing? Maybe not, but it's definitely like quarterly, like what's going on in my life and looking at the domains spiritually, right? Physically, am I doing all the things? Am I eating right to fuel my body? Is the work right? All the things. What can I be doing? And I think, we do this kind of annually when it's New Year's, right? Like, what is our quote unquote resolution? But I'm like, once a year is too late. You really need to be examining this on a regular basis and thinking about, are you just cruising through life? Life is short. I always say life is so short. Why would you not want to be happy? Why would you not want to enjoy every single moment that you have on this earth? And so that to me is the driving piece. It's like a regular examination of like, okay, I'm miserable, but why am I miserable? Okay, what do I need to do?
What's a recent shift, Andrea, you've taken when you've looked at this journaling exercise and said, okay,
yeah,
I can do something different?
So, some of it is like, oh, what are the things I'm doing that I don't want to be doing anymore? Like outsourcing. I don't buy groceries in person. Instacart is my best friend. They come here on a regular basis. I was one of those people. I know you've heard this. I don't like people picking my produce. I don't like people picking my produce. But if they pick bad produce, I'm going to get a refund because I'm not going to take it. So I've come up with strategies around that. My third grader needs a lot of help with homework. I was like, I'm sending him to homework club because, by 6 o'clock when I'm finished with work, does he really have the energy to engage with me in a way that is productive? Do I have the energy to engage with him that's productive? It's not. And so he's doing great. And so it's like thinking about what is the support that I need to not only provide all the things that my family needs, but what I need. And so it's really, in the shift of being an entrepreneur in residence for education leaders of color, having consulting projects, having children and family. What are the things that I can delegate? What are the things that I can hand off so that I'm not doing, the things that make me miserable or that I don't have the space to do right because I got all this angst because I have other things to do. And so I feel like that shift has happened during COVID because we found ourselves in a different space of like, kids at home learning for a year and a half, now back to school and now having to adjust to those schedules and all that. So I think that's been the most recent shift of like, what can I outsource? What can I delegate? What can I do differently so that I'm not doing all the things?
Love it. Okay. Any advice for women who are trying to realign to what makes them happy?
Yes. I feel like that's some deep diving into all of the domain areas of like, what is important to you? And, most people use it same wheel, right? Career, personal, the relationships, spiritual, whether you're a religious person or not, or believe in God, there's some kind of like, how am I taking care of that spirit within me? Right. And some people it is religion, some people it's meditation, some people it's reflection, all the things. But how are you doing that? Your health, your financial piece. And so it's really examining in those areas, what do I need to do to make sure I'm happy in those? And even the financial piece, I was like, I don't have a full-time job. That's going to create a lot of angst. What do I need to do? And so that's when I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a financial planner to examine all the stuff and give me some real solid advice of what do I need to do to meet my goals. And that it's like real tactical things that you have to do actually to get happy sometimes, because it's like things you put off, you're going to get to it. And it's just nagging at you. And that was one, the financial planner piece of like really having someone examine from insurance policies all the way down to, planning for college. And so I really do think examining within all of those domain areas that impact your life, what are the questions? What are the things that are creating angst? Unpacking that, having conversations with your loved ones, with people who are close to you about those things will help you really identify the things that are going to make you happy. And some of it is about, having time for yourself to process. Some of it is the security of knowing I have a plan to retire. The one last thing I will say that made me happy was getting our trust in place of knowing that our kids, if something happens to us, there's a plan and that there's not a whole lot of mess that somebody's going to inherit. And I mean, yeah, now when I think about going on a trip with my husband and we're leaving the kids behind, I know that, I mean, I hate to say these things, like there's a plan in place.
Good to know. Allows you also to leave your kids and know that no matter what, they'll be taken care of.
That's right.
All right, let's do some lightning round questions.
Oh boy.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Cooking or takeout?
Cooking.
Climb a mountain or jump from a plane?
Climb a mountain.
Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
No.
How would you rate your karaoke skills on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Mariah Carey?
I'm gonna give myself an 8 for enthusiasm. Because my singing, I can sing some basic stuff, but I'm not Mariah Carey. I'll give myself an 8 because I will sing. I will engage and participate with enthusiasm.
Recent book you read?
Oh my goodness. We Should All Be Millionaires, Rachel Rogers.
Nice. What is your favorite way to practice self-care?
Oh, my favorite way. So many. Walking right now. It's free.
What's a good professional development that you have participated in?
Definitely Dare to Lead, Iko Bethia, Rare Coaching, former colleague who is now doing some awesome work and helping people be courageous leaders in this time and complex in society. Totally awesome. And it helped me think about this boundary piece.
What's your definition of a boss mama?
Ooh, definition of a boss mama is someone who takes no BS at home or in the workplace, that's willing to call it out, tell the truth, and get stuff done. And is resourceful, and can like take $1 and create a whole fest, like a feast, like just all the things, right? Like boss mamas have to be able to do it all. And still show up and look good. I know that's a lot of pressure, but I'm just like, I've been out in public and not looked that great. And I was like, oh, I should never go out looking like that. I need to keep it. I need to keep it together. I think at least go out in public and look decent.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh gosh. I would say travel more. I did not travel as much as I should have when I was younger. I mean, I took myself pretty serious. Like I'm always like, did I take myself too serious? I think that's the bigger advice of like, don't take yourself so serious that you're working yourself and not enjoying life. That's the moral of that advice. Yes.
Where can we find you? Like LinkedIn or anywhere else like that?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Twitter, Instagram.
Great. And last question. Do you have a final ask, recommendation, or any parting thoughts for the audience?
I mean, my parting thoughts and advice is like, take care of yourself. Make sure that you're getting what you need, professionally, personally, really examine what that means and start taking action, put that in place. And you'll see a difference in how you feel about yourself, how you're enjoying life, your relationships are deepened. I made a conscious effort about 3 or 4 years ago to really invest in the relationships that are most important to me. And it's made such a big difference because I'm more intentional, right? Of like, how do I want to make sure that I'm connecting with this individual?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Andrea. I really appreciate our time together.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this conversation.